October has a lot of meaning to me, especially 3 years ago. I can never forget October 2019. So let's start in the beginning. So the Nationals, so a week before, actually on my birthday, the Nationals clinched the wild card spot, and it was a doubleheader. So I remember the first game they eliminated the Phillies, and in the second game they clinched their berth to the wild card. So the wild card game was 1 week after my birthday. It was on Tuesday. It was against the Milwaukee Brewers. This was the first time the Nationals basically were, I wouldn't say home field advantage, but were not the favorite per se. So I was kind of a little bit nervous about the game because it's a one-game playoff, and with the Nationals' history at that time weren't good in the playoffs, you do get nervous and such. So it was basically like any other playoff game, like from previous past. A lot of excitement and anxiety, basically throughout the crowd and such. So I remember the first 2 innings, Max Scherzer gave up 3 runs. 2 were home runs. One was a solo shot, and I think the second inning was a 2-run shot. It was basically 3-0, and that's basically it. So the only exciting thing happened in that game for the Nats was the Trey Turner home run in the 4th inning, and then Steven Strasburg coming in bullpen relief for the first time and pitched the 3 shutout innings. So fast forward to the 8th inning, and Josh Hader comes in. Josh Hader at the time was one of the best relievers in baseball. Probably still is. That can be debated, but I remember he was like walking a lot of people, and the Nats were getting lucky hits on him. There were bloop singles, but you know what? They're still hits. I remember when Anthony Rendon and Juan Soto were coming up. I know Rendon got walked, and that was the bases loaded. And then Juan Soto was coming up. So this would have been intriguing. So at the at-bat, so when Hader pitched to Soto and Soto got the hit, I looked at the home plate to make sure 2 runs scored to tie the game. Now, the guy next to me mentioned that the right fielder missed the ball. They said, what? He missed the ball? And then I saw the 3rd runner coming in. Now it's Rendon coming in to get in the game-winning run at the time. And then it was delirious. Like, I was so stunned what happened. Basically, the whole stadium was so stunned about this. There's actually a video of this one, if you believe me to it. I'll link the video on top here. Was it the best game? See, that's very hard to say on that one because most of the game was dull and such. But probably it was the best sequence that I have seen in a baseball game in a long time. I would say basically ever as a Nats fan, essentially. And then afterwards, the Nats got the 3 outs in the 9th, and they move on to the NLDS. So in the National League Division Series, they faced the Dodgers. There wasn't anything spectacular, really, in that series. The only thing that was memorable in that National League Division Series was the Ryan Zimmerman home run, 3-1 home run, and on Game 4, basically stay off elimination, and led to a Game 5. And then Game 5, that's where all the chaos began. So, in the first few innings, the Dodgers got the lead. It was 3-0 at the time, and then the Nats scored 1-1 in the 5th or 6th inning. I didn't expect anything different, and I was preparing for the fate that the Nats would lose Game 5, and another Nats torturous postseason comes to an end as well. And then I saw that Clayton Kershaw was pitching, coming in relief in the 7th inning, got Adam Eaton out, and then actually pitching in the next inning. And then that's when Anthony Rendon hit the home run, and then afterwards Juan Soto hit the game-tying home run to make it 3-3. And then in the 9th inning, when the Dodgers were bad, Will Smith got the hit. Well, not the hit. He hit the ball very well, and I thought that was a home run, and that would be it, and that would have been a much more torturous ending. But Soto caught the ball, and we went to extra innings, and didn't think anything of it, and this might be prolonged to a long night and such. So in the 10th inning, I didn't expect anything. Like, there was the bases loaded, and there was like no outs, and I said, "Oh crap, what the hell? What to expect from this?" And Howie Kendrick came up at bat and hit the grand slam at center field, and I said to myself, "Wow, yes. Oh crap, I got a plan for next week. Shoot." So, and this is what I actually did. I planned on booking an Airbnb to DC because actually I had a recruiting conference the following week, and this came out of nowhere. So I got to plan something. So I had to plan an Airbnb somewhere in the area so I can go not only to the conference but also going to the ballpark at the same time. And I found my spot. There were a lot of good choices, and essentially I went with the attractive person. Guys, hello. So I have it in place. I didn't make any orders yet because I didn't want to jinx what was going on at the game. So imagine this was around 1:40 a.m. to 2 a.m. at night, in basically dead at night here in the East Coast. And then on the last out, when Michael A. Taylor dove to the ball, I have to make sure that he actually caught it and doesn't continue. And then when the umpires officially said he was out and the Nats celebrate, that's when I made the move to book that reservation to my Airbnb place. So I had my Airbnb in place, and now I had to plan on what to do on the conference, on what my schedule is going to be. So I watched the NLCS against St. Louis over the weekend, and I didn't expect anything. And what I was amazed by it was the great pitching. Of course, the Nats had great pitching at the time, great starting pitching, but how dominant they were. And the first game with Anibal Sanchez, he had 8 in the 3rd inning with no hits. And the last inning, the 7th inning, Ryan Zimmerman dove to the ball, a spectacular catch, and almost saved like the no-hitter at the time. But essentially the Nats won, and then basically they essentially dominated. Like there was no offense essentially, but the Nats dominated through pitching with Sanchez and Scherzer the next day, and the Nats were up 2-0. And then I got a little bit scared because maybe the next two, the Cardinals will win, and this will go back to normal and such, back to Nats tortured fandom. So on Monday, when the series came back to DC, I had to check in at my recruiting conference as well, and then actually toured a few areas. So I went to Duke's Groceries to have their Papa Burger, which was delicious. And then I went to Halford Woodley for the La Cheesery to get my $15 gift certificate and just spend it on it. And I did not know, really should, I get a discount. So I got a discount and saved money on that one. Got a bunch of cheeses. Yeah, I was walking around, and then when I got my Airbnb in order, did some work. At the time, I was working part-time. So I did some work, and then afterwards, I was heading to the ballpark, and that's when Strasburg dominated in Game 3, and the Nats won, and then which lead to Game 4 with the potential sweep. The next 2 days was crazy. So I had the conference, the all-day conference, and sadly I couldn't stay at the after hours because I wanted to talk to other recruiters and sorcerers, but I couldn't do it because there was a ball game going on. Yeah, so I went to the conference, enjoyed it, I learned a lot from it, and then afterwards I dropped my stuff off and went to the ballpark in Game 4. Yeah, the first inning was crazy. The Nats got 7 runs, and those were the only 7 runs they got in that game. Yeah, and that was enough to win. And that was an anxiety-filled game. Although the Nats were 3-0, you were kind of worried that they would drop the ball on this one. I remember in 2012, the Nats led 6-0 and blew that lead to lose the NLDS to the same St. Louis Cardinals. I remember in the 5th inning, it was 7-4, and then Brian Dozier bobbled the ball, but recovered and threw the guy out, and essentially that was it. And the Nats swept the Cardinals, and they were heading to the World Series. It was mayhem. This was like a stunning result. Not only that the Nats going to the World Series, but they swept the Cardinals, who are very good in the postseason. But that's just stunning that the Nats swept them. And it was pretty easy. Too easy, if you ask me. So the next day, I went back to the last day of the conference wearing my Nats jersey, and I was wearing sunglasses indoors because I was sleepy and I was too tired. And then the first thing in the morning, the keynote speaker told us everyone to do the rave in honor of the Nats winning the NLCS. So essentially, I had a week to prepare to go to the World Series. However, there was another thing going on. The Astros and the Yankees in the ALCS were battling each other, and the Nats have 1 week to prepare because they had nothing to do, essentially. That will come into fruition why that was important. But also, next week, I was going to New York for the first time for a conference. And you know what? And I thought about, I was hoping for the Yankees to win the ALCS so I can catch the Yankees and the Nats World Series at the same time. Now, on Saturday, when Game 6 happened, so they were tied, and then Jose Altuve hit the game-winning home run, and the Astros were heading to the World Series. So I didn't go to do the doubleheader, the Yankees and the Nats, but luckily I saved almost $2,000 in this case. Now, if you're wondering where I would start the World Series, normally I think I would, but this was my first World Series, so I better take that as experience. So I did go to all 3 games of the World Series. Now we know the Astros will be facing the Nationals. I was actually heading to New York, so I took the bus on a Sunday to New York City. So I did some sightseeing the first 2 days, and yeah, and I chose the wrong shoes, and my feet hurt a lot at that time. But eventually, I did see, I would say, like 1/10 of the city. I wanted to explore like other areas, but if you're being a tourist, I would recommend go to New York for a week so you can explore Manhattan, but also like the other areas, Brooklyn, Queens, the different restaurants, the different landmarks. And then also I had tickets to the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. It was my first time at the Ed Sullivan Theater. Wanted to go for a long time to see David Letterman, but you know what? Stephen Colbert is a pretty good show as well. So my only regret is I should have gone to different places, different restaurants, if I had some research of it. But with my time constrictions and such, it was kind of hard to do it. So I went for the tried and true, stick with the Ted's Montana Grill, and then I went to Angelo's Pizza, which was actually next to the Ed Sullivan Theater at the time. The next day, I went to the recruiting conference in New York, and was wearing my Nats gear and such. And beforehand, I was trying to find places where I can watch the World Series. And then I went to Reddit, and then someone told me about JoJo's Philanthropy in New York City, which is a DC bar in New York City. I went there after the conference, and I joined it with a friend of mine. We were just trying to decide where to go exactly. I was thinking of going to his favorite place in New York City, but now knowing the DC bar in New York City, we went to JoJo's Philanthropy instead, and luckily we made that move. Yeah, so at JoJo's Philanthropy, it was essentially a DC hockey bar, but it was very cool to see, and then the lights flickered when either the Caps score or the Nats score a run. Yeah, and then we saw the World Series there, and let's just say the latency was kind of slow in the TVs, but on Twitter, it goes very quick. Yeah, and so the Nats won Game 1 at that time. So after the conference and after Game 1, I ran back home by bus in the morning, and then came back home for Game 2 and saw the Nats crush the Astros, and then stunned that the Nats were leading 2-0, and could it be possible that we could see the World Series trophy presentation at Nats Park, the first World Series in DC since 1933, and it was a crazy scene. So you had a lot of things going on beforehand, plus you had Ping Fong, the Baby Shark mascots coming by, taking pictures, throwing free stuff and swag, and then you have the bubbly glasses, those sunglasses that Anibal Sanchez and Gerardo Parra were wearing at the time during the season. So it was a crazy scene, and I enjoyed it all. Now, sadly, the games didn't happen. I mean, the games were not as memorable. The Astros won all 3 games. The only memorable thing I would remember was Game 5, and so many things happened at that time. So one, we heard before going into the park that Scherzer was not pitching that game. He was facing against Garrett Cole. Scherzer locked up his back and couldn't pitch at the time. He couldn't move. So Joe Ross was the emergency starter for Game 5. And then, this was also the game Donald Trump came by and everyone booed. Now, interesting note about that. So, when they announced Trump is at the ballpark, everyone booed. And then on the big screen, they transitioned to the Army, and I told the people around us, don't boo, don't boo. The military showed up in the big screen. So we had to make sure the optics were good for the military, the people who served our nation, and not try to we only booed Trump and then transition quickly to that. Hopefully that came out good. And then there were a couple of protesters who trying to put up the banners and such. But that was a crazy day. But that led to the Nats losing. And actually, this was also the last time I wore the Jason Worth gnome outfit in public. So I resigned myself that the Nats were losing the series 3-2, and thinking they're probably gonna lose the series in Houston. And they had a great run, and how they took us to a ride, and I was content with that. So before Game 6, I saw a note that if there was a Game 7, the Nationals would open up at the time the Delta Sky Club for all season ticket holders and they'll do entry for free. They get buffets, they get the free buffet and watch the game on screen. And I thought to myself, could be possible. I said, unlikely. Probably the Astros will clinch it and such. And for a long time, the Astros were leading the Nats, I think, through 5 innings. And then the 5th inning, that's where everything stumbled on together. Soto hit the huge blast, and then Adam Eaton as well. And that got the ball rolling. And then after the final out, I decided to book a hotel near Nationals Park. There will be a Game 7 so I can watch it and then enjoy the buffet. On to Game 7, drop myself at the hotel, and then head to Nationals Park and made a beeline to the buffet and trying to eat everything as I needed, because I'm probably going to move around a lot with the anxiety of Game 7. So on Game 7, so watching it didn't start off well. The Astros took the lead. It was 2. They were leading 2-0. Heading to the 6th or 7th inning, I actually, it was this. Yeah, it was through the 7th inning. All hell broke loose in the 7th inning. So I was moving around to a different spot. So the first 6 innings, I tried to move around, try to find some lucky spot because the Nats were not getting runs against Zach Greinke. And this is where Scherzer came back as well and basically pitched 5 innings with a hurt back. So yeah, the first 6 innings, I was jumping around trying to find a lucky spot and couldn't find anything. And then in the 7th inning, I found a spot. That's where Anthony Rendon hit the home run. That made it 2-1. And then Soto walked. And then Howard Kendrick hit the key 2-run home run that hit the foul pole. And that made it 3-2 Nats. And then, so I was at where the batting cages were. And saw the Nats score the runs. And I wanted to stay, but I want to go outside in the rain. And by the way, it was raining, so I was wet. I was wet as hell. Yeah, so I went outside for the 8th inning. And, yeah, and then the guy in front of me said, "Why are you here? You're giving us bad luck. Don't do that. Don't move it." And then, exactly afterwards, Asdrubal Cabrera hit the base hit, drove in a run, 4-2, and the guy says, all right, you can stay. And then the 9th inning, the Nats scored another run, 6-2, and we said to us, we all at the stadium thought to ourselves, oh crap, this might be the moment. This might be the moment. And then when the last out happened, delirium happened, all craziness happened, and the Nats won the World Series. It was nuts. It was so nuts. And I was hugging my friends, hugging strangers. It was a crazy scene. And although the stadium was half packed, basically on the front side because of the big screen, it was crazy. And so I bought World Championship merchandise. And got that, and then went to the streets, and it was crazy then. It was much bigger than the ones at the stadium, and it was an insane scene. Now, the next day was Halloween, and I actually was staying at the hotel, so I dressed up as the Jason Worth gnome for my co-workers. So I actually had a short trip. Instead of going to Fairfax to New Carrollton, I just had to go to the nearest station, which is essentially Federal Center Southwest. And so I went to the Orange Line to New Carrollton to work, participate in the Halloween costume contest, and won $50 wearing the Jason Worth gnome outfit, essentially. That was my October. And that was a month I will never forget.